Max was a young boy who had always been fascinated by music. Ever since he heard the melodious tunes from his grandmother's piano echoing through the halls of his childhood home, he had been enchanted. Despite his love for music, Max had never been able to play an instrument. This changed one Christmas when his parents surprised him with a shiny, black acoustic guitar. Eager to learn, Max strummed the strings, mimicking his favorite songs. However, the sounds that came from the guitar were far from melodic. Overwhelmed with frustration, he set the guitar aside thinking perhaps he just wasn't cut out for playing. His grandmother, once an accomplished pianist herself, noticed the dust accumulating on the instrument and invited Max to her home. She sat him down on a stool beside her piano, cleared her throat, and asked, "Do you know the secret to mastering an instrument, Max?" He shook his head eagerly. "It's practice," she said simply, letting her fingers dance over the piano keys, keenly aware of the way they moved to create harmonious tunes without thought. "When I first began playing, my sounds were no better than your attempts on the guitar. But I practiced every day. I practiced even when I didn't feel like it." Max hung on to every word, inspired by the idea that even his talented grandmother started as a novice. Taking her advice to heart, Max decided he would give the guitar another go and dedicate at least an hour every single day to practice. At first, progress felt slow. His fingertips hurt, the forceful pressure required to press down on the steel strings leaving them red and sore. There were days he didn't want to continue, when the notes refused to come out right, and his frustration reached a boiling point. He thought back to his grandmother's own struggle and persistence, and it inspired him not to give up. Weeks passed, and the chaotic noise gradually transformed into coherent sounds resembling actual music. Max began learning songs he loved, starting with simple tunes and gradually challenging himself with more complex pieces. The turning point came when his school announced a talent show that invited students to showcase their hidden abilities. Max was hesitant but curious if he could actually perform in front of an audience. Still, he signed up, determined to test the fruits of his dedication. In the days leading up to the performance, Max doubled his efforts. Every spare moment was spent strumming, fine-tuning, and rehearsing. His family watched his progress with pride, noting the visible transformation from his first encounter with the guitar. The night of the talent show arrived, and Max stood behind the curtain, a ball of nerves. His grandmother whispered words of encouragement, "Remember, practice doesn't make you perfect, but it makes you better." Taking a deep breath, Max stepped out onto the stage. As his fingers moved deftly across the strings, the once unfamiliar chords felt natural. His eyes closed, he lost himself in the music, playing better than he ever had before. The last note hung in the air, and the room erupted in applause. Max opened his eyes, barely believing that the ovation was for him. A grin spread across his face as he looked out at the crowd where his grandmother stood clapping with tears of pride in her eyes. Max realized in that moment that perfection was a journey, not a destination. Each hour spent practicing, every mistake made and corrected, was a step towards becoming better. His grandmother was right all along. Practice had not made him perfect, but it had indeed made him a capable and passionate musician.